Hey, GLP-1 plus size community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help, our support, and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things. Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
"20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
Welcome
to the
plus sides.
I think we need to work on our intro. That didn't flow.
I still need to address, but like take that those lyrics my sister gave us for the plus sides.
We need to.
I need to make it into a
somebody
song.
that loves this stuff as much as us. I'm not sure that exists. But somebody that's like,
my sister's just really creative. So
yes, I loved that. That was, remember I cried when you read it like a big old sissy.
Yeah. It's in a chat in a Google thing somewhere I have saved in the place where
somewhere. Yeah.
It's somewhere.
No, we need to make it something. We need an intro.
No, I'm only in this little.
We're kind of a big deal now.
Ron Burgundy. Okay.
Not really. Just kidding. Anyway, hi. How you doing? Okay. So today on the Plus Sides Podcast, we're going to talk about pharmacies and PBMs, and we're not just going to like fuss and whine about it, which is what we usually do. We're going to bring people that know a little more about it. So, yeah, for all the bullshittery that we deal with at the pharmacy, not just with our medicine, right? But for a lot of different medications. So without further ado, I'm going to invite in our guest. Well, hello, Brad.
Hey, Brad.
Howdy. Hey, thanks for having me.
You guys to work with me on
this is going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the intro was great.
They're not paying.
The intro's great.
We worked hard on it.
Yeah. Gave it 1 second of thought.
I know, right? I'm telling you, when we started this show, I was like, we didn't know what we were doing. I was like, you know what I wish our song could be? Is the song from The Greatest Showman. Yeah. I was like, how much do you think that'll cost?
Well, Gobi uses it. Okay, Novo uses it, right? So,
yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
That's how expensive it is.
Very expensive. Anyway, so we don't necessarily have to talk about GLP-1s today because I'm going to, and we can talk about it, but a lot of things we talk about on the show, at least when we started, was about, Ozempic, wegovy, all the things. But and I was kind of mentioning to you earlier, like the way that the show has gone over the past year and a half with Kat and I and other people that have come on the show as well, is that we've learned a lot, right? Learned a lot about health. We've learned a lot about the system and learned some things maybe we didn't want to know. And since that, I think it's just kind of given us more questions. and we feel the need to bring more answers. We want to talk more about the food, right? And that being a problem. And we want to talk about insurance, and we want to talk about all the things. So now that we're here and we have this platform, we're trying to get some good education out there. So we're glad that you are here with us. We have lots of questions. But the first thing I want to do, because like, I don't know if everybody else knows you, especially if it's our listening audience, if they're not TikTokers, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you help people.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm Brad, and I am the co-owner of Forest Park Pharmacy with my wife. She's sitting right here.
Hey,
Trying
wife.
to poke her head in. But we are an independent pharmacy. We just opened up about 2 years ago, and we've just learned a million things. You guys said you didn't know anything when you got started on the podcast. That's what it felt like with our business. We just went, we got to do it. Let's get going. And then every day we're learning new things about it. So much about the insurance and costs and the way the whole system works is just becoming more clear on this side of things. So we've learned a ton about that. When we started, we just took full insurance, just like any pharmacy. You would expect to walk in, hand them your insurance card, and get it. But for us, that did not work, and that's not working for most pharmacies nowadays. And so we, after about 4 months, we actually had a negative profit margin, meaning we spent more money to buy the medications than we got paid back. Like, we weren't like profitable as though we were paying people. We actually were spending more to buy the drugs than we were getting paid back.
And that's all drugs, like, I mean, like whatever, like statins and everything. Like,
just the basic stuff. You know, we didn't know. I mean, the pros that have been doing independent pharmacy for years have learned how to manipulate and like, oh, we can't fill this drug, we can't do that. We didn't know any of that, so we were just filling, you know. And we just lost so much money, and so that was where we really started to dive in. We became a Cost-Plus Pharmacy, which I'll tell y'all more about. I'm sure that's going to come up a lot. But we were just going, and then I just started to talk about it on TikTok. I just needed to tell people what was going on, because once I figured out what we were going to be doing, I realized I needed to explain it to everybody. And so I just get on TikTok every day. I do a couple minute videos, talk about it, virtually all news. You can interpret through the lens of insurance and see what kind of effect they're having on the way that healthcare works. And so I can just talk every day about it and just explain.
What did you do before you decided to go into the pharmacy biz?
I was a band director. I was a teacher for 13 years. I thought, marching band. It's a lot of fun. I still love marching band.
That's cool.
You got to have the color out there, you know.
Yeah. Plus, I was the kind that dance, right? Not the ones that just like stand there. I like danced.
Oh yeah, I mean, Color Guard. That's a dance program now.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it was a good time.
Yeah.
It was a good
Cool.
time. Well, that's fun. So then your wife was like, "Listen, I think we should start a pharmacy," and you were like, "Okay." Like, that's
Well, from the beginning, Glenda, like for years, Glenda's been saying, maybe we should do a pharmacy, you know? And I was like, no way, you know? And just over time, she wore me down. And, you know, part of it was just from a personal financial standpoint, we decided that we needed to find a way to be in control of our income. And as a pharmacist, and this is true for physicians as well, but healthcare costs have gone up and up and up. But pharmacist pay she never received a raise in 10 years as a pharmacist. And physician pay hasn't been keeping up with the cost of healthcare increases either. So costs are going up, but it's not going to the providers, you know? And so that was a concern for us. 10 years without a raise with inflation, we were losing money. We were getting paid decreases essentially because of that. So we decided we needed to find a way to get in control of our income, and a business was our solution. So
cool. Well, at first. And then you're like, wait a minute.
I just have to change healthcare now. So
right. Now you're like, let's change everything. Well, I think that's good. That's kind of how we are too. We're like, oh, we should try to change things. That's like our slogan is, let's get loud and change things. Because if we don't, the status quo will continue to work like this. And it'll continue to serve people who it serves. You know,
gotta speak up.
So cool.
You know, it's totally unrelated, because I had to think about it, because you said you were a band director. There's like 3 band directors we're weird Prince fans, my Prince fan groups. Like 3 of them are like super duper diehards. Like 3 of them in my group. One's in Iowa. Yeah, because it's the music. It's the
Oh, I
music.
bet
Anyway,
that's what their show said.
nerd,
I bet it's like the Prince stuff.
nerd,
That'd be
and
good,
drop it out
right?
there, and we're done.
That'd be a
But
good show.
yeah. So like the music nerddom among band people is pretty
Sure.
awesome. Not just Prince. But
Right.
anyway, let's go somewhere else.
Also, Kat and I have ADHD. Yeah, we can
No worries.
This happens
Always good to talk
sometimes.
about Prince.
Okay.
There's always, yes.
There's always room for Prince on this
ubiquitous.
show. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Pat, ask your question.
Yeah, so let's get back to the topic at hand. So can you explain to us on like layman's terms, right, how pharmacy benefits managers work? We'll get this together. Leave it in there.
No worries. Yeah, sure. So pharmacy benefit managers, most people don't know that they have a pharmacy benefit manager because you pick a health insurance and then you're thinking that you're using insurance every time you go to the pharmacy. But the pharmacy benefit manager is really the one that is more important to your everyday use of your insurance coverage. So they decide what medications are covered. That's called the formulary. They decide how much you'll pay for those. That's your copay. They decide how much they'll pay the pharmacy. They decide, let's see.
Wow, they decide that, huh?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they just tell you it's a contract, and they just tell you, and they decide where you can get it, what pharmacies you can get it from. So they're in charge of all of those aspects. But healthcare recently has been going into vertically integrated pyramids. So that means that the pharmacy benefit manager is associated with the insurance company and the pharmacy and the providers. So they've sort of come together in larger groups, which has really changed the way it works for most people.
Because like they had these benefits managers, and then like the insurance company started buying them up, right?
Yeah, I mean, different,
separate, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't necessarily that the insurance companies were buying the PBMs. Like, for instance, CVS bought the PBM and the insurer. For a while, their wholesalers were buying PBMs. So it's been going a few different ways. And there was a while ago where a couple of large insurers were going to merge, and that was stopped by the FTC. But then that allowed CVS to actually make the purchase of Aetna, which then brought, it made it a huge vertically integrated pyramid, which made a big difference in the healthcare world for sure.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people, we have like kind of different ways that insurance works, right? We have people that have Medicare or Medicaid, right? And then we have people that might have like private plans in some way, maybe like marketplace or not. And then we have where most people seem to have their insurance in this country, which I think is like through their employment, right? Or their spouse's employment, or however that works, right? And we kind of get stuck with it, right? We don't have options with just whatever our companies choose. And then like a lot of times, at least for us, people that are like on anti-obesity medications, they're, $1,000+ a month, right? So most people can't afford that. So we use these coupons, but these coupons you can only use if you have insurance, I got to ask you, what the hell's up with these coupons? Like, what does your wife think? Like, what's happening? I feel like it's some weird dance where they're just passing money and they're like somehow making money using these, like the insurance companies bitching about how expensive these medicines are, but I think they're making money and making them more expensive, and they're making, oh, look, $25, you can get it this way. Sums up, because we can't use it anywhere else, right? You can only use it if you have insurance.
I'm bringing her in. Here comes the expert.
No, I don't know that I'm going to be the total expert on this. But yeah, you usually do have to have an insurance claim in order to use those coupons. So there was a while back with, I know with Mounjaro, for example, and again, I've been out of the insurance game with billing all of this for a little while now. But I know with Mounjaro, you were allowed to use the coupon, and people were using it off label for weight loss, but they could still get it for like $25. And then they came back and said, no, you have to have the diagnosis code for type 2 diabetes. Like this has to be it. So, what I think was happening was I was hearing that a lot of pharmacies were getting charged back on a lot of the money. So they were getting charged back from the insurance side and from the coupon card side if they were not having that correct diagnosis code.
Yeah.
So that was part of the play of a lot of people stopping taking those discount cards. It wasn't necessarily that the pharmacy was losing more money or anything like that, as much as they would get charged back.
So what does charge back mean? Because we don't speak the language. What does that mean? Like,
I'll let you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, so this is where the PBMs start to get crazy. Whenever you sign the contract with them, it gives them so much control over the way that your pharmacy works. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't just say like we'll pay you this much for these prescriptions. It comes with a massive handbook of rules and regulations. And one of those things is that they'll approve the prescription. When you run a prescription in a pharmacy, you type it in and it pops up, is this approved or not? And it says yes, and it tells you how much you're going to get paid. But they come back later and they review those prescriptions and they change their mind about them. What? So if you put in the wrong diagnosis code for, like she was talking about, for any of the weight loss medications, if you say it's for diabetes, but it was actually for weight loss, they'll review that later and they'll come back in and take back whatever they gave you. So if a pharmacy buys the medication for $1,000 and then we get say $900 back, because on these medications they don't actually pay as much as they cost. That's why independents aren't supplying them as much as the big chains would be. But say we buy it for $1,000, we get $900 back. Eventually they decide that it was incorrectly billed, then they'll take that full $900 back from us. The prescription's already out, so we're just out the full $1,000 in that case.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So do people do this? Like, do pharmacies usually, like, let's just say like an independent pharmacy that's not like a CVS, right? Do people usually sign with insurance or work with PBMs just because it does tend to bring them more business? Like, is that the goal, is to like that they're going to push their people to them?
Yeah, exactly. Because like over 90% of Americans are insured. So everybody expects to use their insurance. So any independent pharmacy that has insurance, that's going to be almost their entire customer base. Yeah. So nobody wants to drop insurance. Everybody wants to keep insurance because that is all of their people. And to give you some specifics about what it did to our business when we switched, because we took insurance, when we dropped insurance, we lost 70% of our patients. So it cost us a huge portion of our base, but we doubled the profits because they were paying us so poorly.
Yeah, because they were paying you and getting it right away, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Does it usually take a long time when you were doing insurance to actually get paid, or do they pay you pretty quickly? We don't even know how like the process works.
It's like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, it's gotten really wild, especially with the GLP-1s, because like I said, they're $1,000 each. Yeah. So if you're doing, even a small number, like 4 or 5 a day, then, 6 weeks later is a long ways off for that kind of money, to be able to run a business in the meantime with all that money gone. And then especially you don't even know if you're going to actually get it.
Yeah. Our friend Dave has a show and he gets his prescription through his local pharmacy, his diabetes, and he gets it from there. And he says his pharmacy that he goes to actually loses $25 every time he goes there, loses it.
Oh yeah.
Because he uses insurance, uses his coupon, and so they're like losing money. He still fills with them, but that's what it's like. And he said that there's a really big problem with pharmacies. So I guess what I'm wondering is, why is it harder for a smaller pharmacy, like a mom and pop pharmacy, independent pharmacy? I'm not sure of the lingo, so you can tell me. I like them. I could call them right things, versus like a CVS or something. Like, why are the small ones going under? What's causing that? Is it just the insurance bullshittery?
Oh yeah, 100% PBMs just not paying enough. So the PBMs, like I said, they control how much they pay pharmacies, but they don't need independent pharmacies. They have their own pharmacies, right? Express Scripts is the 3rd largest pharmacy in the country, and I think there's only one of them. It's like in Kentucky, right? Yeah, it's like Kentucky, and they mail everywhere. And it's the 3rd largest in the country, meaning like it's almost as big as Walgreens, and there's only one. And the reason that happens is because they're pushing all of the patients to their pharmacies, and they're doing that by underpaying independent pharmacies to run them out of business so that they have to go. Now, they use a whole bunch of other techniques as well. They limit how much you can dispense at a pharmacy like mine to their patients. Like this prescription, you can only get 2 times from here, and then you got to go to this other pharmacy.
What?
Yeah. We call that steering. So it happens all the time. But that is what's causing all of these independent pharmacies to go out of business, is that they're not paying enough and they're pushing the customers away into the other, into their own pharmacies that they own. And the reason that they're pushing everybody into those pharmacies is because they pay themselves way better.
Yeah.
And now this is another thing we didn't talk about earlier with PBMs, but like you were mentioning with the types of insurance, self-funded insurance plans are where your employer actually pays the cost of your care. So if you fill a prescription, the employer actually pays that cost. It's not like the insurance doesn't pay it. They get a bill to your employer and they actually pay what that medication costs.
Really?
Yeah. So then that causes, that gives the PBMs a place where they can profit on these prescriptions. So if you have a fully funded insurance plan, which means the insurance company actually pays it, then that works like insurance that you would normally think of. You pay the insurance company and then they pay out. But self-funded insurance plans, they don't have your money. They have to collect your money. So they charge more money so that they can get a percentage of it, and they get more of that percentage if it's at their own pharmacies.
Right.
So independent pharmacies are on the outside of everything. Nobody needs the independent pharmacies except for the customers. The local customers are the only ones that need it, and they have absolutely no voice. Some of our best customers were the worst paid because they don't choose how much they pay. They just use their insurance, and whatever happens after that, they have no control over. So we had great people come in, try to do anything they could to help us because they wanted to support local, but it didn't matter. It's totally out of their hands. They would cost us hundreds of dollars, filling as much as they could with us, because that seems like what you need to do.
Yeah.
But they have no control.
Yeah, because you're like, if I'm going to get my blood pressure meds here, I might as well get everything here. Right? Yeah. I always wondered if that's the reason that like pharmacies have like, I don't know, like laundry detergent and stuff. Like it's just, hey, if they're here, maybe they'll get their other stuff while they're here, and they're like hoping to drive more business that way. Because I can't help but wonder when we're talking about this, about how the little guys are going out of business. But then we hear about like in the news with CVS having all these problems and Caremark having all these problems and them talking about replacing this person and, oh, business is bad. How the hell is business bad? You're taking it from everybody else. I don't get it. Like it's not
Yeah. Well, CVS, they're the biggest PBM, the biggest pharmacy, but they still only control the PBM only controls 33% of the market. So that means 70% of the prescription that they fill are not their own personal PBM. So they're still dealing with the same type of payouts that everybody else is from the other PBMs, right? They're not paying CVS any better than they're paying Walmart, for instance. So they still are stuck dealing with that. But, they do try to use the front end to get as much as they can, but it really takes a big time effort, a big time focus to get that type of front end business. And I don't see that from the big guys, CVS. They certainly build out the store so you have to do it, but that's definitely not what their main goal is. Their main goal is to get the prescriptions for sure.
Wow. Gotcha. All right. Well, what is Cost-Plus Pharmacy? Is that similar to Mark Cuban's pharmacy?
Yeah. So Cost-Plus is just the pricing model that we use. So that means that we charge the cost of the medication, a markup, which is 15% for us, and then a $10 fee. And that's what you pay across the board. So that means that you can do the math on your prescription and figure out what our actual purchase cost was on that medication. So Mark Cuban's company, he calls himself Cost-Plus Drugs, but that's just a pricing model. So I think we are still on the Cost-Plus network, meaning we can fill Mark Cuban's drugs here, but we never have. Like I don't know where they're doing it. They just mail them for the most part. But yeah, so the Cost-Plus thing, what that does is that allows us, and it's only possible because we don't take insurance. If we took insurance, we would be restricted from doing anything that we're doing with the prices. This was another thing that the PBMs do. When you sign the contract, there's a thing called the usual and customary price. Now, the usual and customary price, they're asking us what we charge for the medication. So if we're doing rosuvastatin, they say, what is your usual and customary? And we say, our usual price is like $45. Okay. And that is not our usual and customary price. That's what we have to tell them. Otherwise, they won't reimburse us at all. If our price isn't high enough, then they say that the cheapest price would be what we already pay. So they wouldn't reimburse us at all. So the usual and customary has to be sky high. That's why Cost-Plus Pharmacy doesn't work with insurance, because we can actually charge really low prices. We don't have to lie to the insurance company and tell them that that's what we would normally cost.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. Do you guys, just real quick, do you guys mail too, or is it only local?
Oh yeah, we can mail all within Texas. And again, I mean, this is how I feel when I'm doing my videos. I'm sorry, but every question I hear goes back to PBM. It's just like when you ask if I can mail, I can only mail because I didn't sign the contracts with the insurance companies. They restrict pharmacies from mailing. And of course, the answer is, why do they do that? Because they have their own mail order pharmacy, right? And of course, at their mail order pharmacy, they charge the insurance payer, which is your employer. They charge them literally 10 times as much money. So they make 10 times as much money, and they're the exclusive provider. So if you want something mailed to you, it's coming from your mail order insurance pharmacy, and it's going to cost you a heck of a lot more money.
So curious with the way that these work, or with the way that your pharmacy works versus like something like GoodRx. Like what actually is that? Because there's so many different layers to this that I'll tell you, like most of us have no idea what's going on. So how does like GoodRx work? And
yeah, sure. So GoodRx, again, here we go. PBMs.
Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So the PBMs, like I said, there's the usual and customary price, and pharmacies under contract are restricted from lowering that. Otherwise, they might as well not take insurance because they don't get reimbursed. So the usual and customary price is set kind of by what we call the AWP. That's an insurance metric that they use to determine the price of the medications. That stands for average wholesale price. Now, if average wholesale price was what it says, and it was the average wholesale price, it would be way down where I charge my prices. But AWP is a nonsense metric. It means absolutely nothing. It's made up by the manufacturers, and it's elevated. The higher it gets, the more money the insurance company can charge. The higher they can get a rebate, the more money everybody can make. So the AWP is a sky high number. So since we're all restricted from offering lower costs because of that high usual and customary that's necessary, GoodRx came in and they said, here's a separate program. This isn't your usual and customary. This is a whole other program. And because of that, you can charge this price. This is your price with this special program. So GoodRx goes around that usual and customary price and gives you this lower price that you wouldn't be allowed to just charge yourself. Now, for that service, GoodRx charges the pharmacy a fee. It used to be $7.50. I think it went up to $8.50. Recently, they kind of went wild and they were charging like floating fees, just like a PBM, like I saw up to a $33 fee. So they can offer lower prices, lower cash prices at chain pharmacies than you might see normally with their cash price. But they're not like a cost plus. So at Cost Plus, our price is based on the actual acquisition cost. For GoodRx, theirs is like a market price. Their price can kind of float however they want to. They make business deals. Different pharmacies have different prices they've negotiated, and it's usually a good price. Like GoodRx for the most part is pretty good, especially compared to the cash price.
Right.
But it's only possible because the PBM restricted what everybody could do.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Ooh, and then here we go, man. I just can't stop. PBMs every time. So one thing that started to go wild with this is recently the PBM started a program where they'll automatically search all the discount cards and find the lowest price for every patient. So when your prescription comes in, we run it through insurance. Here is your insurance price. But now they've incorporated all the discount cards in that. So immediately when we go to check you out, the lowest price is going to be whatever pops up. So that could be GoodRx. You might automatically be defaulted to GoodRx. But the PBMs got their own discount cards. Okay, so now it's running. You could be using the Caremark PBM card or the Optum discount card.
Uh-huh.
And this is just lunacy because we only have to use these discount cards to lower the price because we're restricted by the PBMs, right? So they set this standard. You can't go below this standard unless you use this discount card. Whoops, we have the discount card. So now here's your cash price. So you're not using your insurance, by the way. This is not an insurance discount. Anybody could be using these discount cards.
Yeah.
So you're not using your insurance. You're paying the full price at the checkout. But remember, there's a fee associated with these discount cards. So you're paying a fee for the service of them lowering your price.
What the crap?
Yeah.
Are you shitting me? I'm sorry, but what the crap, Brad? Oh my
I'm
God.
really starting to hate these PBMs even more.
It's starting to. It's bizarro.
Like when you thought you couldn't hate anymore. Wait a minute. Hold on. Signal.
Yeah. And you can't even tell this when you get your prescription, that's not visible in any way. You know, it still looks like you've used your insurance. The price is even lower. So it seems like they've helped you out, but you have paid them again to not use your insurance.
My
Thanks
God.
for nothing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for a whole lot of nothing.
I gotta ask you, how do you think we got here? Like it's such a mess. Like I just can't. It's so bizarro. And like, I know it was probably about a year ago that the help committee was really grilling all the PBMs to be like, why are you charging America so much more than the rest of the world? Right. And that was, and they weren't talking about GLP-1s yet. That didn't happen until this year. And they were grilling them. And I still haven't figured out, I mean, which I think is typical because of government, you know, but like, how do we get here? You know, like, and they don't seem like good answers. It just seems like it's what the market will bear. And because we can, and you don't regulate us. Like, that's what it seems like the answer is, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think that the problem is sort of a fundamental economic problem that we have with the way that we use healthcare in the US. And that's that somebody else spends the money for us, right? We give our money to the employer and then the employer spends our money. And if somebody else is spending your money, they're not going to spend it wisely.
Right.
You know, if you were the person that had to make the economic decision, you had to decide where your healthcare dollars were going, you would not be paying these outrageous brand medication prices that they get away with. The only reason they can get away with these outrageous costs is because it's what I call dark money. It's money that we don't see. It's behind the scenes money. You know, when we see these commercials for all these brand medications, I mean, I don't know anybody that's been on any of these medications that are on TV, you know, almost nobody is on these. So where do they get the money to run these commercials?
Yeah.
And of course, the answer is from us. When we pay our premiums, it goes into that system and they have to justify the cost by raising the cost so that they can collect even higher premiums.
Yeah.
So if we were using our own money, we could make a difference on this. But right now, we can't choose to not pay that. You know, we can just choose. Do you want, like, they threaten you with the cost of medication it might be $1 million for this medication. You know, you might go bankrupt. They're running stories, all the people going bankrupt from all these healthcare costs. So because of that, we have fear. We have to have health insurance, you know, no matter what the cost, we have to have health insurance. And because of that, they can just do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, that's for sure true. Because then there's people out there, you know, who they get plans and they're like, you know, ultimately, so I think you kind of do it for one of the things, right? You get kind of like catastrophe, right? Like, I need to make sure my hospital visit's covered. Like, I need to make sure, or I need to make sure that I can afford my doctor. But what we're finding, at least for specialists, a lot of specialists are getting where they're not even taking insurance anymore, right? And I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the things that you're talking about here, right? Is the back and forth and what the price is going to be, and all hopes that people are going to send them the stuff. But in terms of specialists, they usually don't have to, you know, there's not a lot of them, right? So I don't think they have to compete as hard for business, right? Because there's, like, for example, there's only 8,000 endocrinologists. So only, I don't know, I want to say between 7,000 and 10,000 obesity specialists, like, in the whole country, you know, and that's not enough. So they don't have to, I don't think, necessarily compete as much. So a lot of them have gone to where it's just self-pay, right? At least that's what we've seen, I feel like, lately. I don't know if all doctors, I feel like they're more the GP, but then when you go to your GP, you know, you're paying like a copay, and some people may pay $5, some people may pay $100. But like my husband's gone before, and we were in between insurances and they were like, it's just $100 today. And we were like, wait a minute. And we heard, how many times a year do you go to the doctor? Right.
Right.
Like you have to kind of start thinking about that. I think it's important to know, like, so candidly, and I talk about on the show, I clearly lost my mind and quit my very, very good job to do this podcast and be a TikToker. And my
It's probably
insurance
more fun.
and we're paying Cobra right now to keep, because our insurance is really, really good. And we take these anti-obesity medications. Right. So that's the thing, is like, it's so expensive. And so if it's like, now I have to decide, like, how am I going to go about this? Do I need insurance? Like, should I just be paying? I don't know. Like, it's such a crapshoot, and there's not enough information on it, I feel like.
Yeah.
Kat, I'm sorry. I feel like when you were losing.
No, I'm listening to
your
what.
question. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what were you reaching with? Were you getting there with the question about Cobra?
I was just running my mouth. You go.
All right, stay hydrated.
Mhm.
Sorry. Okay, so what's the purpose of your
Not a
price
crazy
checker?
Gatorade. I'll be sending you a bill.
Yep, electrolytes. Anyway, so what's the purpose of your price checker? What does it show? And who does it help the most?
Okay, sure. Yeah, the price checker, that is the cost that you will pay at my pharmacy out the door. Like, that's the actual cost. So that's already the acquisition cost, our markup, and the $10. So that's your real cost. And the reason that we needed to do that was because when we say that we don't take insurance, immediately your brain goes expensive, because that's what we think of healthcare. That's going to be expensive. So we put it on there so that everybody can look at their medication, see what the actual cost is going to be here. And hopefully they can begin to make some smart decisions about the way that they spend their money. We're cheaper than like half of copays. If you look at the back end cost, like when you have your copay and then on the back end they charge your employer, we're cheaper than like all of that money.
Wow.
That's that dark money. If you get rid of that, we're cheaper than everything. But even that aside, you pay your insurance $600, we're cheaper than half of the copays, which is outrageous. So we had to put our price checker online so that people would actually see that and understand how cheap that is. And the crazy thing is, in the US, we have the cheapest generic medication in the world. We have a massive market, and the generic medications, which are 90% of prescriptions, 90% of all prescriptions dispensed are low-cost generics. Wow. We have the cheapest. So almost all the time, prescriptions are going to be very, very affordable, unless you get into something like the GLP-1s or some other medication that's still on brand. That's the only time you're going to have a high cost, really, is the brand medications. So our price checker allows people to see that. And even if we're not cheaper, we added a ton of drugs that we are not going to be cheaper on. That way, everybody can understand, oh, this is an actual expensive medication. I need insurance for this. Yeah. Insurance is making a real difference.
Yeah. Like, so for my husband and I, if we're going to pay $2,000 a month for our whole family to be insured, and we know that our zepbound is $1,000 a month each, then that might make sense for us. Right. Although it shouldn't cost that much. And that's a whole other story for another day, but whatever, but, it's crazy. So that's okay. I just wanted to know for sure. And like, so in terms of the medicines that you guys offer, is it only generics, or do you guys offer also name brand?
Yeah, we can get anything. We have a huge network of wholesalers. We can get the most competitive prices. But we're mostly generics because the brands, here we go. PBMs are controlling the brand medication prices because
they make me cry.
But they, the brand medications have to be really high priced, because one of the key selling points for the PBM customer, now the customer for the PBM, you would think it's us because we're the ones that have to deal with it, but it's not. It's our employer. Our employer is the one who's the customer for the PBM. So the way that the PBM justifies their costs is by saying, here's how much we're saving you via a rebate, as you guys were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The PBM wants a higher rebate so that they can tell the employer that they're saving them even more money. So the higher the rebate, the better it looks for the PBM. So we don't have access to the rebates. Those are exclusively negotiated with those guys. So the price that we have at our pharmacy is not the rebate price. we have the real price, what I actually have to pay for the medication. So we can do brand, but you'd have to have a real bad situation for our brand prices to be helpful for you.
Because the BBMs control the brands. And probably, and I guess because of that, anything new that comes out, right? Like GLP-1s.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So
food has definitely been a very dominant voice in my head. That's not the main focus anymore. Dieting, exercising, and adding GLP-1s through Ro is a game changer. I have such a sense of mental freedom since I started with Ro. Food no longer controls my thoughts. Family time used to revolve around food, and now it revolves around what we're gonna go do together.
So like, so for example, we know that a GLP-1, and you may not know the answer to this because it's still pretty new, but there's a GLP-1 called Victoza. That's an older one. It's a daily one. And that one, they just lost their patent and that's gone generic. And so they're going to have a generic out for that. It's still stupid ass expensive. But if we knew people that could actually get it and afford it, then in my opinion, because it was one of the first ones I took, it was the first one I took.
Yeah.
It can actually help people to get on ramp at, people that have obesity, or diabetes. So is that something you guys have looked at, knowing that that's going generic? And if not, you should.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, if that went fully generic, then that would be, I think that would be a huge game changer. And did you say you took it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's called Lyric. So it's great. It's called Liraglutide. Well, the thing. So like, Semaglutide, right? This is Liraglutide. So it's daily. But it started as Victoza and that came out in 2012 and it lost its patent last year. So this year they announced it was coming out generic and what the price was going to be. And it was honestly, it
kept it up there.
It was pretty expensive. It was still several $100s a month. But honestly, with the shortages, if people were, I really would love for people to know about this. Like, and I just want to say, like, for the record, like, just in case Brad decides to carry it, for Liraglutide, like whatever they're able to make that generic into, it is a daily one. And there are, I would say, a little more GI effects, like for some people, that usually I think you can like manage to get used to, just like with all of the other ones. It's a little slower, I think, weight loss, but that's the first time I experienced no food noise as someone that's had obesity for as long as I can remember. And I was I was 8 years old when I started on my first diet. And so I was on that medicine and that one that could be considered older and more inferior. But honestly, if I ever didn't have any other option, I would do it again. It was honestly a blessing. I experienced weight loss on it and I experienced control like of cravings on it. I hate to trivialize that a lot of times on these medicines by saying like cravings control and stuff like that, because that's not what it is. Like we've learned from the doctors on the show what's actually going on with our body, which is that like our body is trying to store for the famine, right? Like, so it's saying we want the high calories, we want the high fat, and it's telling our brain that we need these things, we need them. And then we feel such a strong pull, like we have to like silence that noise, So I think that if anybody would not have to suffer and be able to get something that's affordable, it's an option. It may not be the best option or the fanciest option or the weekly option, but it's an option, And like that was one on the Oprah show that she did about this.
With the teenager, right? The young one.
That's what they were on, because that was all their insurance could afford. But it was called Saxenda, the one they were on. Or no, it was Victoza. It was Victoza.
It was Victoza.
Victoza off label, because Saxenda and Victoza are the same. They just vary by dose. But I think it's something to look at. Just saying.
Oh yeah, well, it's on our website. If you go under like our weight loss section on our website, we do have it listed, Liraglutide. Now the problem with Liraglutide is that when it went generic, there was a 6-month generic exclusivity where only one generic manufacturer could make it. So it was like miniature brand. That's why the price didn't really change that much. So that comes up, I think, in pretty soon, in the next month or so.
So keep our eyes open for it.
And make that video because we will share it in our community. Get ready for
it.
Mail order.
Yes,
that is big. Yeah,
it is a big deal because there are plenty of people out there who will never be able to afford, especially if compound goes away, right? Like if people lose access, like if the FDA says for sure shortage is over for when they come back for tirzepatide, semaglutide, here's what's going to happen. Point blank period. The people that have obesity are going to fucking panic. That's what I'm sorry. I'm just going to lay it out there. They're going to panic, and they are going, because they're panicking, they're going to make not smart decisions, and they're going to go buy from peptide companies that are selling on the internet for $100. And they're going to be telling them that it's, I don't know, retatrutide, which is like the one that's still in clinical trials. Right.
All right.
And then they're going to take that and they're going to get sick. Right. And then that's going to hurt everyone and everyone and everything everywhere. Right. And that's what's going to happen because people have gotten to a certain level of health. They're not going to be willing to give up. Right. And it's not because they don't want to get fat again. It's because they don't want to be sick anymore. Right. It's because they don't want to have constant inflation anymore. It's health. They want health. They want movement,
that feeling of health,
choice. They want freedom. Right. Because they deserve that. Everybody deserves that. So that's what they're going to do. So if they lose access to compound, that's what's going to happen. Right. Is either people are going to find it from, pharmacies that aren't regulated in any way, which is going to be like random online pharmacies, right? Or peptide companies. And I've literally seen Groupons advertising this.
The med spas will find something. Yeah.
So
this is a very great opportunity. So this, you said, in about a month.
Med spas are getting it from, I think most of the time the med spas are getting 503A, 503B.
Yeah, they are. But yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and liraglutide is on the shortage list right now. I don't know of anybody that's compounding it like at scale the way they're doing semaglutide and tirzepatide, but liraglutide is on the shortage. I think because I remember it was looking at the price and being like, damn, that's expensive for compound. And I think it's because it's daily, right? I think, as opposed to the other ones, which are weekly. I don't know, so maybe in terms of, I don't know. Yeah, I'd be real interested to see what happens with the price of that. If semaglutide and tirzepatide fall off a shortage, I'm sure that the compounders will pick that up. And then some more generic manufacturers, obviously, will jump in and start to fill that hole.
Well, I hope they're more like, even if it ends up where we have to play this stupid insurance game for a while, if you guys can get liraglutide for $25 and it can help start changing your life, and that sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds like sort of like a little teeny weeny bit of a plan B-ish, maybe a plan B adjacent. Something to think about. Yeah.
Something to think about. Yeah. Especially if I didn't know about the whole 6-month thing, like where they can only.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I know that was a thing. Like, I was just like, oh, it's generic now. What do we know?
We were like, let's let for the cloud, like the clouds and everything depart. Yeah. Yes, $25 liraglutide, and no.
Just kidding. So when people are using like Medicare, obviously you guys don't. That's insurance, right? So you don't take that. So, but there are people I think that sometimes even with Medicare can't get certain medications right for good prices. Can they come to you and pay cash even though they have Medicare?
Oh yeah. Anybody, no matter what your insurance plan is, you can come to us. For Medicare in particular, just like everybody else, we're cheaper on about half of copays. So just like all insurance, you want to look at what your insurance is charging you, and then look at our website on our price checker. That's the key, because if you look at Medicare, whenever you're choosing a plan, they have like a price checking tool, so you can go in and look at the formulary to see how much this medication will cost you with that plan. And then they tell you how much that medication will cost you not at that plan. And they'll tell you specifically. Like if you go to Medicare, I forget what the website it is, Medicare. Medicare.gov, and look at what our price is compared to their price. I don't know if you guys saw this one. I just get my mind blown so often by this. But it said that it was like $132 for a medication, droxidopa. And then for our price, they said it would cost Medicare patients $116,000.
What?
$116,000. That's what Medicare.gov says.
For like their life? I mean, what?
Yeah. For 1 month of the prescription, $116,000. And our price is actually $49, right? Yeah. Now, this is, again, that AWP, the nonsense number that's totally made up, that PBMs use to pretend to save people money. Yeah. That's where that number comes from. But it's just like, make sure you're not trusting your insurance company to tell you how much it'll cost somewhere else, because they don't. Yeah.
So I have a question from someone in our community that was saying, like, when they're having to choose like Part D, I'm not going to pretend I understand. I don't. When they're choosing Part D plans, how can they like make a smart decision, like to ensure they're getting one with like a rich formulary? Is it that they go to the website? Like, do you have like direction on that?
Yeah, so Medicare.gov, the place that I was just talking about, that's where you would want to go look to see if they were going to be able to help you.
Yeah.
It's tough because you can only know what you needed in the past. You don't know what you're going to need in the future. So that's where it's tough to judge a formulary. You can't see their entire formulary. They don't go, here's everything,
Right.
It's like a black box, but they will let you pull each individual drug. So if you know what you need, you could search and see what your price for that specific medication will be. And then past that, it's kind of luck, is this really going to help? Black box makes it tough.
So, the other question from our community questions was, I guess this is more of like an opinion. What good does it do for the FDA to approve a drug like Wegovy, right? If it isn't going to be included on any formularies, and if you could maybe explain like what the disconnect is there, like what's the point?
Question.
It's not even going to be on anything.
Yeah, sure. So when the FDA approves something, they are saying that this is effective and safe, which then just gives everybody confidence. It gives doctors the knowledge they need to prescribe it. It gives patients the confidence they have to take the medication. It gives them some studies to look at to see how it really works. That's what the FDA approval does for you.
Okay.
That's unrelated to your formulary. The formulary is a business decision. There's an executive somewhere deciding what is good to go on that formulary. They decide that based on profitability, costs. They won't tell us everything. We know sort of how it works, but they won't tell you exactly what happens. But the FDA approval, if it's not FDA approved, obviously it won't get there. But just because something's FDA approved doesn't mean it will get on there. For instance, there's a drug, Brenzavvy is what it is, and it's what is the?
It's like Jardiance.
It's a generic for Jardiance.
It's not a generic. It is a brand.
Or it's a brand. It's a similar drug to Jardiance, and Jardiance is one of the most expensive drugs in the country. It's in the top 10 most expensive drugs for the plans. Patients pay different amounts. They probably pay a lot, but like the government is spending billions of dollars on Jardiance. So Brenzavvy exists. It's an alternative that people can look at. It's not identical, but if you need Jardiance, Brenzavvy might be something to look at. And Brenzavvy is like $50 a month, like out the door, so that's so much cheaper, but it's not on any formularies, not covered by insurance anywhere. So even though it exists, even though it's cheap, it's not on a formulary, so almost nobody takes it. And the reason, who knows why they're not covering it, but it's not on there, so nobody takes it. It's crazy.
That is crazy. What a mess. No wonder you were just like, screw insurance. Let's just stop Seriously. Yeah. And
but
the thing is,
here's another crazy one.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So with the formulary, how much control that has over what people actually take. Recently, a biosimilar, which is kind of a type of generic for Humira, came out, and it actually came out a couple years ago. And Humira is another one, just one of the most expensive drugs in America. It costs billions of dollars. Yeah. It's outrageously expensive. I think $14,000 or something. I want to say it's what you would pay if you got it from me. But so they came out with a biosimilar a few years ago, and it wasn't on the formulary. Absolutely nobody taking it, none whatsoever. Now CVS purchased. They kind of white labeled it essentially, so it became the CVS biosimilar. So they put it on their formulary, and then just poof, 2 months. 90% of their patients were on the biosimilar medication just overnight. So it's like they decide what we use.
Forcing involved there, right?
Yeah, it's
crazy.
I mean, and so it's just crazy to me that there was this affordable medication available. Nobody used it, and then they decide to use it, and the next day everybody's on it.
That is insane. What in the world? I feel like this is, and I know they've been talking about like price transparency and all those different things, but it's just like you said, it's like this black box. Like you just have no idea what's going on. I don't even know.
I think it's tough when somebody else is doing the decision for us. We have to actually see the cost and feel the pain of paying that $1,000 for the brand medication,
Yeah, for sure.
So, wow, that makes me think. Yes, so we are paying for what Anthony Anderson to be the spokesperson for Ozempic now, right? It makes me think of, and then
Simone.
Yeah, Simone Biles.
Simone Biles for
I think
Mounjaro,
Mounjaro.
Yeah.
and what Khloe Kardashian for that migraine
Oh,
medication.
God.
Blah.
Yeah, where's all that coming from?
Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Jeez.
We pay for all that. I think,
Yeah. What a mess. This is like I feel like we always have some sort of resolution at the end of our show, and I'm like, ew, it's gross.
our resolution is Forest Park Pharmacy.
We will put the link in the thing.
Right.
We will put the link in
When
the show.
we
give you some options.
Especially with
but I mean,
hit generics.
Yeah, and that really is the, I talk about it every day, and I've been trying to come up with solutions, and I do think the solution is to get those middlemen out of the way. So if we get more, like the actual cost, we don't know what the actual market cost of these medications are going to be, because there's always that dark money that's paying for it. So the more people we can get that are paying cash, the more competitive market we can have, the lower we can get these prices.
Right.
And, hopefully it spreads across healthcare, like the direct primary care, those doctors not taking insurance, that's bringing the cost down. We got to get some more hospital options, X-ray options, all that stuff. The more people that take cash, the lower the prices will be.
And I feel like it's even worse. And I know you guys don't have to deal with this now. Maybe your wife did in the past, but like whenever we have to do prior authorizations, like that just the crap, like, and so we'll have a script just like sitting there and ready and they can fill it. Right. But they're like, nah, until we get the PA like approved, through insurance, we can't like give you this med. And that's like the worst, because especially for GLPs, they have different insurance plans and different policies and different bullshittery there, right? Have put additional gates in place, right? Like, oh, now you have to do a PA every time you go up and dose. Oh no, you have to do a PA every month.
Once a month.
Oh no, you have to do a PA every 6 months. You know what I mean? And then they decide if you've if it's successful, if you've lost enough weight. Well, what was enough weight? You haven't given me enough time. The study goes over 3 years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that's what they do.
Right.
These
PBMs are practicing medicine.
They are,
I mean, they decide. Yeah, absolutely. They decide what's best. Your doctor, you don't get to choose what's best. Your doctor doesn't get to choose what's best. Your pharmacist doesn't get to choose. There's a hidden middleman that makes those decisions ultimately if you're going to be using your insurance. And, the GLP-1 prior authorizations, I was looking into it the other day, and I think 19% of insurance plans will cover some type of it, but 10%, it's like after you've signed up for a weight loss program, after PAs, after step therapy, like the amount of steps that they put between you and actually getting the medication are brutal.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like I'm kind of bitch and whine about a lot, but the issue with like, I think obesity, right. And diabetes specifically, is that all the insurance companies all kind of bank on the fact that you're going to not be their problem in 3 to 5 years, right? You're going to switch and go to another plan. You're going to change jobs, whatever it is. Right. And the problem is they've continued to like kick the can down the road, right? Like, somebody else's problem. But now they've done it with everyone, and the food in this country is garbage, right? So now we're everybody's problem and nobody wants to pay, and we just keep making more medicines and charging more money for them a month. And it's like, I'm trying not to get political, but the way that obesity is and all of the different things that it causes, it can bankrupt our country, because that's how bad it is, right? With all the issues with, heart disease and Alzheimer's. And I mean, the list goes on. And it's just continuing to be a drain on our country and our society, whether we get to 65 or not, and like they have to fix it, because it's a horrible disease and it's literally killing most of us. Like it's this, like all the data is there, And I think that people forget that. They continue to think about these things like they're weight loss medicines. No, that's not what this is. But then everybody, there's a constant like, oh, we should also fix the food. Yes, could we please? Could we do both? Because both are a problem.
Maybe it's just make it more affordable and accessible.
Well, but I mean, think about it, Kat,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like, here's the thing, like, I have a kid, like, he's predisposed, right? His dad and I both have obesity, but his dad never had obesity growing up. He didn't develop it till he was in his
Yeah.
30s, right? I've had it forever, for as long as, so for sure there's some genetic predisposition there. But I mean, like, I would like to know that things are moving forward in terms of healthcare to where if my son ever it does have it, he has help. Or if my son ever does have a family and he has children or grandchildren, they're
Yeah.
not being poisoned by our food. I'd like to think there's a way somehow with all this fucking money that people are literally talking about here, instead of it going to, the Kardashians who, I'm sorry, you don't need any more money. This is like reform. I feel like when I went to the Senate hearing that there was some good traction in discussing that they want to, have PBM reform, and that it was bipartisan. In this country, I don't know. My concern is that traditionally, when a Republican is office, they don't like to do a lot of regulations, right? Like that's kind of Trump's thing, right? Is let me get rid of like the regulations. So I hope that doesn't affect what they're trying to do there. But I really think we need reform for PBM stuff. Like, I don't know what that needs to look like, but I would really like to see what it is they have and have it presented, because I really think it's bad. It's it's bad for every one of them. I mean, even the richest people, right? Like you're definitely going to struggle here. And like, and I'm not just saying for obesity meds, like this is for like what we just talking about, like all the meds in the land, this is a huge problem. So I hope it happens. You got any opinions there? You want to throw in that?
Yeah. So PBM reform, I mean, that's like for independent pharmacies, that's just the number one thing everybody is talking about, that they have to have PBM reform in order to survive the way that things are right now. There's a really, they're all getting behind a bill from Senator Alkenclaw or Representative. I think it's HR 9096 or something like that. It looks positive. The independent pharmacies that take insurance really want it. I'm not convinced that what it says is that they can't pay independent pharmacies differently than they pay chain or PBM pharmacies. That's not going to solve our costs, right? Because PBM pharmacies get paid 10 times what we charge. So that's expensive. So if they suddenly start regulating that all these independent pharmacies now get that same amount of money, like that's not going to bring costs down. That'll keep these pharmacies open in these rural locations. So that's a positive for it, but that's not going to solve costs.
Right.
They want to also maybe do some centralized price decision making. I haven't seen that really work. Typically, if they set a price on something, then they just stop making it because it no longer makes them the kind of money that they want. Unless you're going to force them to make it, then it kind of goes away. We saw that with the insulin. They pushed it at $35.
Yes.
Suddenly, it became totally unavailable.
Yeah.
Can't buy it. So in my opinion, it's like we just gotta open it up. Open them. Once that like that Victoza generic, we'll see what that happens. When that becomes real generic, we can see those prices fall. We see with the GLP-1s right now. The compounding pharmacies are competing and those prices going down every couple of months. Those prices are dropping.
Absolutely.
If we get some market involved in this, some transparency, we can make the prices drop. But if it's locked behind that black box, it's not going to happen. So transparency and
more transparency. Yeah, I like it. I mean, that's I think it's really interesting. Like, and I don't, you probably weren't in the know. I don't know if you're in the know, but it's like I feel like unless you're hanging out with these PBM bullshitter, you may not know. But like Eli Lilly, when the shortage was going on with zepbound, kind of one of the ways I think they kind of dug out of it is they got FDA approval for the vials, the single dose vials, right? And so then you could get it through Lilly Direct, and they kind of positioned it like you had to use kind of one of their telehealths to be able to get it prescribed. But actually, I just learned recently that actually anybody can send in the script and do it that way. And by doing it that way, well, first of all, from a marketing perspective, they were making it look like you were getting it from the manufacturer, which means you'd be able to get it. You get it approved, be able to get it. Like it was very tricky, very tricky. But what is interesting is they went around the PBMs, right? So they offered the first 2 doses, so 2.5 of zepbound and 5 of zepbound milligrams, right? And they offered it at a cash pay price, and the cash pay price was very, very close to what people were paying for compound for the highest doses. So, people who like didn't want to go compound because it could be scary if you don't know what's going on, right? Or even if you do, because it's a risk, right? And they're like, all right, well, I will pay $300 and know that I'm getting the brand and know I'm getting it like, the first couple doses from them. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I've only been paid digital for a couple of years now, but I've never seen an insurance company just go, we're just going to cut the PBMs out. Right. And I hope they keep doing it, but I don't,
I do.
That was super interesting. I think that the main problem for them has been the pen itself, the actual pen. They can't get it manufactured enough. So the vial they can, because the medication's available, nobody has a problem getting tirzepatide and semaglutide. It's just that they can't get it exact dispensing method. And so I think the formularies don't react fast. They can't see a new product and then it be on everybody's formulary because every employer would have to then reevaluate the formulary, so it's kind of an annual thing for them. So when they drop a new medication, I don't think it can immediately get on any formulary. They have to take it back to the employers, take it back to the payers next year when they sign up. So I'm sure that we'll eventually see the vials reach people's formulary. But I did find it really interesting that they went straight to market on that. That was cool.
It's kind of brilliant. Well, then I was thinking, like, if you think about it, the price, they're like, well, we know, we figured out what the market could bear. We know people are willing to pay $200, $300, $400. That's the price. You know what I mean? That's what I thought was interesting. I was like, oh, how they figure out how much to charge for it when I know they're paying. I know the most expensive thing is the mechanism, right? And I know vials are dirt cheap, right? And like that's how they knew, right? And it's because of like that fluctuation, And I think it's very interesting to see all of this playing out. Like, but I also think it's crazy that it's that it's even something that like is happening. Like it's just so bizarre to me that there are people that are just like suffering needlessly, and there's all these medicines available, and that they're charging so much money. And I'm all about. My background's in marketing. I am all about a company making a profit. And you work hard, you do the research, you make your money. I have no problem with that. But you can't gouge people to death, literally. Like that's it's what's happening, and that's when I get all pissy.
Yeah, absolutely. And nobody would pay those high prices. It's dark money, They got our money already, so they can do whatever they want with it. And if we were making those choices, I think nobody would pay for that. It wouldn't exist at that point.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I mean, I think where we're in terms of GLPs, there's only like 12% of people that have actually been able to get access. You know what I mean? I don't know if the number. I think that number likely is only prescriptions, as like I think not necessarily prescriptions to like compound pharmacies, but definitely like regular pharmacy prescription processed through insurance. That's not that many people. I mean, if you think about it, like the fact that the food companies are trying to pivot, like I think Nestle is offering like a line for people that are on GLPs. They're like, here, come eat our shit over here. You know, all that stuff that made you fat before. We're going to solve it now. We're going to pair with your GLP, which is brilliant. But it's also interesting that they're pivoting like with 12%. You know what I'm saying? Like with knowing
that's a significant amount of enough of money, enough of market share, if you think about it too. And then
change your whole, I mean, they got so much money.
Because with the insulin resistance, the obesity, those cravings, it made it pretty significant.
Because they've been giving this crap to us for all these years.
Right. And with 12%, that's
it's like they know, it's like they know what they've been doing. They're like, what? That worked great. Yeah. What's next? Well, yeah, sure. All right, enough of that. No, this was just our let's learn and bitch and whine about PBMs episode, and that is what we titled it.
And then go to Forest Park Pharmacy.
Yes, for all generics, and they can be mailed to you. Huzzah!
We'll put and we got GLP-1s. We got a compounding too. So check those out.
Oh, do you have compound for both right now? For now,
yeah. And semaglutide I think starts at $119. Tirzepatide starts at $199.
$119. And you guys get from a particular type of pharmacy or regulated pharmacy?
503Bs, yeah,
503Bs.
503Bs, and we've got a few of them. We shop around to try to get the lowest
Yeah.
price we can. So we've got a wide range of doses. We charge per dose, like per
You do.
size.
Yeah.
It's not like
Okay.
we don't charge one flat fee. It's depending on what your dose is. So we can have lower prices for lower doses. It ends up being higher for higher.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got Semaglutide, tirzepatide, liraglutide's listed, but it's been unavailable from the
Yeah.
second it became generic.
Yeah.
So
That's cool though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty good, really. So for if people are interested in that, so you guys will have that until they say the shortage isn't a thing anymore. Hopefully they won't, but if they do, which is
Yeah.
insane. Of course it's a thing.
It's
You
gonna go
know,
back
you
to
know one of my
back.
videos that's one of the most popular videos for me still are my
What?
videos that give people tips how to find their medicine during shortage. Oh, but there's no shortage, right?
Right. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
talk
I'll be
TikTok.
interested to see how that goes. We're supposed to be hearing from them the 21st, I think, is the
Yeah.
next time that they're going to be talking about that. So I'll be
Uh-huh.
real interested. I'm a little concerned because when they put it back, when they took it back and said that pharmacies could continue to compound it,
Yeah.
they didn't put it back on shortage.
Yeah.
So those 503Bs, they have that 60-day window,
Yeah.
but that didn't necessarily stop.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if it'll start over. Like, I'm wondering if they go, nah, it's going to be on shortage, but we're going to start at this new date. You have 60 more days or some shit. Like, I feel like that would be that would at least be a bone. You know what I'm saying? For
Right.
all these people that are just going to be unmedicined. I don't know. Is that a thing? I think to me, like,
Yeah.
seriously, like that's
Right.
the thing is, look, no one's going to all of a sudden like perish, right? Because they're not on a GLP. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Right? But ultimately, though, it is treating a chronic disease, both like for both
Yes.
indications, and especially we have people that take it that have heart conditions, and it's considerably improved the function of their heart, along with like the obesity and type 2 diabetes, right? And we know that, and there are indications for that. So if you get off of it, like, and they can't afford it, then their health is probably just going to decline again. Like, it's just it shouldn't just be something that they could just go, oh, it's not on, like, just self-report like that. It's trash. It's
Right.
sorry.
Trash.
Yeah, it's still unavailable. Like we can't order all of the things. It's I don't
Yeah.
know how they came up with it, but it's definitely not available.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially if 2 million people or however many they say are on the compound and start trying to get the brand again on insurance, like it's going to
Wow.
be unavailable instantly.
Absolutely. If they could even get approved, right? Yeah, because
Right.
clearly they're not getting enough formularies, and I think they're not enough formularies because it costs too much damn money. Like, I don't know, but then I mean, you hear the CEO of Novo, and he's like, "No, it's because they're going to delist me, or I don't know, whatever we call it in pharmacy world.
And
Right? You're going to
ostracize
take
you
me
or
off
something.
formularies, and then I can't. Then I have to stop selling for the insulin altogether, right? So it's like a big old hot mess and a lot of finger pointing. So I hope somebody gets something figured out soon.
Yeah.
We got new,
Or it just stays on shortage. We could
politicians.
just
I don't know,
keep dispensing.
huh?
Or it just stays on shortage. We could just keep on dispensing
No,
at these low costs.
Because
I
it
think
is
it'll stay on shortage. I don't think there's any relief. I mean, honestly,
no,
but
yeah,
like what you said, Kim, like you get this amount of people who are off compound to start getting, like, if say in a perfect world they could get their Mounjaro, their zepbound, yeah, you'll be right back
The
into
thing
a
is-
very
is-
dire
is-
situation.
we have to report it, right? We have to self-report because
Mhm.
if they get off shortage and they get their way, let's just pretend, I don't know, who knows. If they do and they're like, nah, because the whole reason that they're saying it's in shortage is they've been self-reporting. And then I think they realize, and Novo was like, we don't really have to do that, right? But ultimately, if we continue to say it, that needs to be considered, right? If we
Yep.
can't find our medicine, that needs to be considered. And if you think about the demand just in itself, that's just the people that are like on the medicine now. But what about all the scripts that are getting written a lot, right? Whether it's through people's regular doctors or telehealth or a specialist or whatever it is, like it's more and more people are getting this script written, which means and I don't know if you guys have seen, but in terms of the news and what they're doing to be able to handle like capacity with manufacturing, doesn't sound like any of them have actually solved it. They've just like, we're putting money here. Okay. How long until we actually see something come out of that? You know what I mean? Which I can't imagine is that fast because I know it ain't now. I know it's not
Right.
now because people can't find it. People still can't find it, Yeah. Let's
definitely.
hope. I hate to say it, let's hope for shortage, but let's hope for shortage,
I
Yeah,
just think
compounding's been
this
filling the role
never
pretty well.
left. Yeah, shortage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Shortage will continue.
The shortage will continue. It's weird to want that. Because when we first started, it was like, oh, the shortage, it was the worst thing ever. But now it's opened up access,
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah,
All
I've
right.
learned so much about 503Bs. It's been mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's cool. We don't really know much. I feel like it's not something that we hear a lot about,
Yeah.
like all we know is sort of that we've learned on the show is that, they do have FDA oversight. And they are able, I think like certain ones like batch test or something, like we know about that. So a lot of people want to understand that, there's enough efficacy, right? That's all we really know. And honestly, it was a year and a half ago when we started this podcast that the shortage got really bad. And I reached out to some doctors that we knew in the community. And I was like, look, you guys, this is bad. You guys have to say something, because if not, just like I described in the beginning, which is what's going to happen, we're going to get it reversed. People are going to go to the peptide companies and they're going to use Groupons and they're going to get stuff that's not what it should be. And it opens up the world to this black market side, right? Not gray, but black, right? And when that happens, people are going to make stupid decisions and get sick and die. Like that's where it comes down to, right? Or they're going to go somewhere where they're not actually getting care. We don't need a prescription at all. Like that is very, very common, And finally, so we had a couple doctors come through, and we had one compound pharmacist on that episode, and then we had 2 obesity doctors. And I was just like, I think you guys have a responsibility, but nobody wanted to get involved because it was still kind of like a couple years ago. Like it was very like, oh, we don't want to talk about it.
Kind of gray area.
Kind of like everybody was scared. I was even like, I would never take a compound, but I would now.
Yeah. When I first heard about compound, I always thought of, so when we had a dog, he had these chronic eye issues. And that's when I knew about compounds, that we had to get like special eye drops made at the compound pharmacy. So I was like, what is this? A veterinary?
Yeah.
What? I didn't know that, but it's very common that you get your pet meds from compounding pharmacy.
Do you think we can have this very final question? Final question. Do you think that if they say there's no shortage, do you think that there's still room if a doctor were to say, this patient specifically needs, for example, let's just say semaglutide. They need 0.40 of semaglutide. You know what I mean? Because the 5's too much and this is too little and this is what they need. Like, is there room for compound pharmacies to get involved with that? I don't, it doesn't seem like adding in B12 or B6 is necessarily a thing, but I've also heard adding a particular compound to help with like muscle loss is a thing. And I've kind of been hearing some things batted around in the wild. Got any opinions?
Yeah. So it's, they can kind of take their own risk. In that case, it would be the 503A pharmacy, which is like, if we were to start compounding, we would be a 503A. It's just the small pharmacies. So they are kind of be making their own decisions based on what they're hearing. Now, every time we talk to lawyers about compounding, they say, oh, no, that's, can't do that. No, can't do that. Because they're thinking about what they would be able to successfully defend in court.
Right.
And a small difference, in the dosage may or may not work. A small additive may or may not work. So it's going to depend on what type of stomach those independent pharmacies have to bump into the manufacturers. If Eli Lilly comes after them with their billion-dollar lawyers, do they have the confidence to stand up to that? So it would definitely like bury the market. It would go from 100% to probably like 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
But there would be people out there making it. So you would be able to find it, but you'd have to look a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right. That was a good final thought. I like it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Thank you guys so much. It was a great episode. When it's live, I'll send it to you, and I'll send you a short, and if you'll promote it, that so people can come and listen, that'll be cool.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Got a video every day.
Yes. I love it. Yeah, like it'll just one of those days you'll be like, here's one. I don't have to record one today. Just go watch me on the show. It'll be fine.
Yep.
Love it.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this lovely conversation. Plus Sides crew, we will see you next week. Hasta la pasta.
Thanks again, Brad.
20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.